Mysterious people who went missing, what happened? For more infotainment, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Thanks for watching. So, back when I was in Boy Scouts, my troop lost me. Twice. In the same night. While I was still in my tent. This is not an exaggeration. The story is thus: we were at Camp Decorah, in Iowa. We had the idea to go and perform a raid on the counselors' tents/cabins. I, however, was feeling ill, so I specifically said I'm not feeling well, I'm going to sleep. They acknowledged this, expressed regret that I was not coming along, and went to have their fun. They have their fun. They retreat into the wood line. Then they take a head count. I am not in the head count. They expect me to be in the head count, because they forgot. So, now, there is a missing camper. The entire camp is set to searching for me. Sometime during this, a guy from my troop decides to, get this, check the tents. I am in my tent, as I should be. So he goes to report that I am found. I go to the bathroom during this time. Someone comes back to the camp, and checks my tent. I am in the bathroom, so I am not in my tent. I am now missing again. I get found sooner this time. Edit, you Iowa people, I live in MN, just north of Decorah. It's like 45 minutes away. When I was 4 I got lost in a city and was rescued by what my dad thought was a gang. We had dinner in Chinatown with another family. 5 kids in all. Crossing the street after dinner, we were holding hands in a big chain. My older sibling let go. When the light changed and everyone crossed, I stayed on the sidewalk. I was looking through a window into a barber shop where some huge guy was having his head shaved, can still picture the scene. When I finally looked around, everyone was gone. I started to cry. A group of teenagers approached and asked if I was lost. I said yes. A tall kid hoisted me into his shoulders and started down the block. Other kids split up and went in different directions. We rounded a corner and I saw my dad. He turned white and ran toward us. The kid lowered me to the ground. A few other kids were there. They stood around awkwardly while the tall kid explained what happened to my dad. My dad, not a demonstrative guy, flung himself at the kid and hugged him. My mom appeared and picked me up. Years later my dad told me he saw the same group of kids hanging around when he first parked in the city that evening and was suspicious that they were a gang. He was embarrassed and tried to be less judgmental after that. Wish I could thank those guys. This was a long time ago. A few years ago I was working a job in Manhattan. The building I worked in had 11 floors in it. One day after going out for a smoke I went inside and pushed the button for the elevator. The doors opened and a very young blonde girl of about 11 was standing there in tears. I asked her what was wrong but she couldn't speak English. She seemed to be speaking Polish but I wasn't sure. She came out of the elevator crying and just looking at me with so much fear in her face. I walked her away from the elevator trying to figure out what was going on. She was wearing high heels and a really short skirt as well as wearing a bunch of makeup. All she kept saying was 7 and uncle. I was so confused and had absolutely no idea what to do. I worked on the 7th floor so I took her up to my office in hopes that someone would know her. They did not. I ended up taking her to every floor in the building asking people if they knew who she was. No one had a clue. I was losing heart and was getting ready to call the cops. We finally reached the 11th floor and I learned her uncle had an office there. When she saw him she ran to him screaming and crying. He looked at me like I was a pedo. I quickly explained what had happened. Turns out her aunt had dropped her off at the building, gave her the wrong floor number and then just took off. The poor thing was horrified. Ooh. Similar story. I was at the zoo with my parents. They were very opinionated against black people. I was like 3 at the time so I couldn't tell but they told me that they were. Anyways, I saw a big slide that swirled around and looked like a snake, we call it the snake slide, and decided that I wanted to go there. My parents were talking next to me, so they didn't notice I left. I got completely lost on the way to the snake slide. When my parents found me, I was with a big black lady who had been walking me all over the park trying to find my parents. They both gave her a giant hug, and it completely changed their views about black people. It's nice to see false beliefs crushed by kindness. When I was wee lass, I went to the Bronx Zoo with my dad. We were at my favorite exhibit, the one for bats and other nocturnal creatures. So, it's all dark in there and I grab onto my dad's hand and start hanging on him, but I'm looking at the bats the whole time. I look up and realize I'm holding a stranger's hand and immediately start crying. My dad was a few feet behind watching the whole thing play out, laughing his head off. I remain traumatized. Same thing happened to me. When I was a kid, I was in line at the grocery store with my mom. I had my arms around her, hugging her, and I wasn't really paying attention. The line moved, I let go and then I hugged her again without really looking. I look up to see that I have my little arms wrapped around this great big bald guy who looks, coincidentally, terrified. My mom thought it was the funniest thing ever. Me and the big bald guy did not share her opinion. This reminds me of when I was in Hawaii on a family vacation. I was in a burger joint with my family somewhere along Waikiki Beach, and we were seated next to a window. There was no glass, an opening, along the side street. A big white van pulled up across the street by a bunch of bushes. Two guys got out, opened up the back, and started unloading a bunch of parrots, cockatiels, macaws. Those big colorful ones you take pictures with. At least 10 of them, maybe more. They put them all in the bushes for a little leg stretching, I suppose, and the men ate lunch while the birds played. Another man came walking down the road who seemed to be their boss. He gave them some instructions, then continued down the street to the beach. The van guys finished lunch, loaded up the birds, and drove off. About 10 minutes later we noticed a movement. One bird, the exact same lime green as the bushes, had been left behind. We noted this to our waiter, who said, "Gee, I hope it's there when I get off in a couple hours. Those things are thousands of dollars." I don't know how true this is, but a pretty penny anyhow. So we finished eating and went over to see the bird. It was very happy to see us and came right up to us to be picked up, so we decided to see if we couldn't find the boss guy down at the beach. My sister picked up a stick and held it out. Mr. Green Birdie hopped right on and continued right on up her arm to her shoulder, where he was quite content. My sister was not so much. Not even a block down the beach did the boss man come running up. He was Filipino, shrieking, "My bird! My bird!" as if accusing us, so we were like, "Hell yeah, it's your bird, dude, your guys left it over there." There was a slight language barrier, but once he understood that we were bringing it to him, he was super thankful and paid for our hotel, so apparently he was loaded. TLDR, rich bird owner pays for our Hawaii hotel room for returning his lost bird. I had a 12-day period of dissociative amnesia while I was in the U.S. Air Force. I was doing laundry one Sunday night while waiting to start extra cleaning duty. I woke up 12 days later to my supervisor shaking me awake in my dorm room. No one saw me for those 12 days, no one heard from me. I was not a recluse, I was extremely outgoing and easily noticed. How I vanished for 12 days is amazing. Editing this to not have to reply to everyone, I was considered AWOL, got an Article 15 out of it. Was medically separated with a $25,000 severance and told by the U.S. Air Force psychiatrist that I was useless to the U.S. Air Force. I couldn't explain it, and through every pill I was prescribed and some therapy, they couldn't unlock my brain. It's said that it does not happen to people who are in their older 20s, but it did. It happened the once. My brain scan showed that the hole everyone has, is larger in yours kind of thing. I never looked into it, as I really don't want to know if I went to France and killed people as a transvestite, or just off for 2 weeks. I had no reason to desert. I was in for over 6 years at that point. I'd been to PSAB, Saudi, South Korea, France, Spain, and was in Germany at the time. I loved my time enlisted and would do it again. Please read the comments to see that I was a good airman and would not have deserted.